Good morning, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Youba Sokona, one of the vice chairs of IPCC. I sincerely regret not being able to be with you today here in Tashkent due to conflict of agenda, and we are busy with the IPCC lead author meeting of the contribution of Working Group 3 on mitigation. I sincerely regret to not being here in Tashkent. I'll try to, in a few minutes, and then to sum the key finding of our special report on 1.5 degree warming, and also to indicate how to contribute to the work of IPCC. There is four main key messages that emerge from the special report on 1.5. The first one is climate change is already affecting people, ecosystems, and livelihood all around the world. The second is limiting warming to 1.5 is not impossible, but would require unprecedented transitions in all aspects of society. The third is there are clear benefits to keeping warming to 1.5 degree compared to 2 degree or higher. Every bit of warming matters. And the last one is limiting warming to 1.5 can go hand in hand with achieving our goal. We can even compress those key messages in 3 bullet points. The first one is every bit of warming matters, and then that means any single addition to emissions matters, and then we have to make everything not adding to already existing emissions. The second is every year matters, that the time is not on our side. Any minute, second, years we waste not taking action will be highly cost, and then the objective we want to reach will be impossible. And then the third one is every choice matters. That can easily be said by even the kid in kindergarten. Every bit of work matters, every year matters, and every choice matters. And let me try to start with where are we now? What are current situations? And since the pre-industrial times, human activities have caused approximately 1 degree Celsius of warming, and this is where we are today. Actually, we have one globally, at the mean global surface temperature is 1 degree Celsius. At current level, at current rate, and we reach 1.5 degree between 2030 and 2050. If we do not change anything based on the current situation, the 1.5 will be reached between 2030 and 2050. And past emission alone do not commit the world to 1.5. And this is why I said that every bit of warming matters, because the 1.5 will be related to the past emissions, the accumulation and the addition of emission we'll have in the coming 2 years. And then we have already seen with 1.1 degree of warming consequences for people, nature, livelihood all around the world. And from where are we? And those are the summary of where we are now. Where do we want to go? From the problem we are facing, where do we want to get out of this problem? And this is why, where do we want to go? And if we look at, we compare 1.5 degree to 2 degrees. And why we need to make that the comparison? Because that was the question that has been asked IPCC by the UNFCCC. Because in the Paris Agreement, it said that 2 degrees and far below 2 degrees. And we're making a comparison between the two and then how to get there, what needs to be done. And there are clear differences in climate and extreme between today at a 1.5 degree and a 2 degree warmer world. Less impact from extreme weather where people live, that is between 1.5 degrees. If we are in 1.5 degree, there will be less impact from extreme weather where people live. And also by 2100, global mean sea level rise will be around 10 centimeters lower, but will continue to rise for centuries because of the inertial resistance. And the implication of that is 10 million fewer people exposed to risk of rising seas and less coastal ecosystem exposed. And those are the differences between 1.5 degree and 2 degree. Another example of differences between 1.5 to 2 degrees, smaller reductions in yield of maize, rice, wheat, and sorghum and other cereals. And then a global population exposed to water stress is up to 50% less if you are on 1.5 than 2 degree. Also less water stress for ecosystems. Up to several hundreds million fewer people exposed to climate-related risk and susceptible to poverty by 2050. Lower impact on biodiversity and species. High risk of losing 70 to 19% of warming water coral reefs and their services to humankind even higher at 2 degrees. And at 1.5 and even more so at 2 degrees, there is disproportionately high risk of Arctic, dryland region, small island developing states, and least developed countries. At 1.5 compared to 2 degrees, there will be a lower risk for health, livelihood, food security, water supply, human security, and ecosystem growth. A wide range of adaptation options can reduce climate risk. Less adaptation needed at 1.5, and all those indicated there is a clear difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees. That is only half a degree between the two. That is very important. 0.5 degrees are very important. You can see the different impact of the two. And now, from there, how do we get there? What needs to be done about it? And those are some of the elements I just want to highlight. If we take, there is first of all, an energy system transition that needed to be done. And then you can see in this view graph, and if we take two pathways, there is a different possibilities taking the two pathways. One is sustainability focus, and then second one is middle of the road pathways. And clearly you will see the differences between the two periods, 2030 and 2050. And then from the coal, oil, gas, non-biomass renewables, biomass, nuclear, final energy, bioenergy, carbon capture and storage, and fossil fuel carbon capture and storage. And there are different figures that the model that we have assessed indicated what need to be done in terms of energy system transitions in numbers. And there is clearly a need of decarbonization. Energy transition is needed. That starts with decarbonization of electricity sector. By the renewable energy scaling up and then deployment of renewable energy, integration of renewable energy into energy systems, the existing exciting fossil fuel generation we need on the electricity sector, electrification of the end use, energy end use, such as in transport with the vehicle, electric vehicle, in the industrial sector, in the building sector, more energy efficiency for all the sectors, adaptation of key infrastructure to climate change. This is on the energy system transition. We need also industrial system transitions by improving in the industrial sector the energy efficiency, electrification and hydrogen, industrial carbon capture, utilization and storage, bio-based industry, circular economy in the industrial sector transition, among different things that need to be done. And then urban and infrastructure system transition, such as land use and urban planning, adoption of low carbon transport fuel, such as electricity and hydrogen, shifts to public transportation and sharing non-motorized transport, smart grids, efficient appliances, low zero carbon building, green infrastructure, building code and standards in the urban infrastructure system transitions. We need also transitions in the land and ecosystem through afforestation and reforestation, agroforestry, more agroforestry, sustainable intensification of agriculture, conservation agriculture, soil management, livestock management, ecosystem restoration, biodiversity management, wetland management, buildings on indigenous knowledge and local knowledge. Sometimes they are also very important in the land and ecosystem transitions. And within and across systems, there is a number of actions that is needed, such as integrated planning of transportation and urban form at the city level, initiatives that engage companies, redirecting financial flow toward a low carbon assets, integrated risk sharing and spreading, packages of innovation policies that combine research and development with support for technology diffusion, social protection for poor and vulnerable, international, regional, and local cooperation clearly in need. And then how to get there also implies sustainability focus, such as benefits and trade-off with sustainable development, balancing social well-being, economic prosperity, environmental protection, pathways with low energy demand, low material consumption, and low carbon food have the highest co-benefits with sustainable development. Sustainable development can support and enable the systemic transitions and transformation. And there is a number of enabling factors, conditions for that to happen, integrating sustainability or all the different transitions we have indicated embedded in sustainable development, avoiding only trade-offs and maximizing the synergies by strengthening multi-level governance and institutional capacity, strengthening policy tools, technological innovation, changes in lifestyle and behavior, transfer and mobilization of finance, as there is no free lunch. Finance, money is very important, and access to finance is critical for transfer and mobilization of the resources. And there is some ethical and fair transition aspect that need to be looked at, such as a careful mix of policies will allow mitigation and adaptation to be pursued alongside sustainable development. So there is no trade-off between adaptation and mitigation and sustainable development. All can go together, and there's some element, some situation where they are there together. Low carbon, climate resilient development pathways, and this implies cooperation, multi-level governance, innovation, and the redirection of investment flows. And then from that perspective, there is some urgent and far-reaching actions. Let us just highlight some of the elements related to that, such as the global carbon emission need to peak before 2030 in all pathway compatible with 1.5 warming, because we assess number of pathways, and from the models, all of them indicated they need to peak between 2030. Emissions of carbon dioxide fall by 45% by 2030, reaching net zero around 2050, with deep cut in methane and other emissions. ethical and fair transition are critical. Limiting global warming to 1.5 is not impossible, but political and societal will to accelerate transition is key, critical, fundamental. And let me now move to how you can get involved in the upcoming IPCC report and how to contribute. And those are very important because it's crucial, fundamental that we get input from the entire society, disregarding where they are coming from, disregarding if they are from the scientific community or not. And then those are some of the elements I just want to highlight. During this cycle, what we said that the IPCC is producing a report in a cycles. That is 6-year cycle. We are in a 6 assessment cycle with 7 years, 6 to 7 years. And this cycle, we have 3 special reports. One, I just highlight the key finding that was released last October is global warming of 1.5 degrees. There is 2 other reports, special report. One is climate and land, and then the second one is climate and cryosphere. And then the climate and land will be presumably released in August 2019, and then the ocean cryosphere 2029. And then the 1.5 already fit the IPCC, the UNFCCC COP24 in Poland, and then the Talanoa dialogue. That it was really a part of that dialogue. And then we also have the improvement or update and improvement of 2006 IPCC guideline for greenhouse gas inventories. And then a critical attention will be on the cities, and then as we already organized a scientific conference in Canada, Edmonton, on the cities, and then with the aim to have maybe a special report if this is accepted to government during the cycle of the 7 assessment cycle of the IPCC. And then we have the main report of the cycle composed with the contribution of Working Group 1 on science, physical science of climate, Working Group 2 on vulnerability, adaptation and impacts, Working Group 3 on mitigation, and all those reports will be available in 2021. And then the synthesis report, that will be a synthesis of the entire production of the whole cycle, including the main report and the special report, and that will be for April 2022, and then to be an input to inform the UNFCCC Global Stocktake 2023. And just looking at the special report on land, the outline has 7 different chapters, from the framing and then to the risk management and decision making in relation to sustainable development through the food security aspect, desertification, land degradation, and land and climate interactions. And how we came up with that. And then this process will go through number of timeline, as you can see in this slide, and then from January and then to August, when we expect to have the approval session of the summary for the policy makers. And then you just can, I will not go to any details on this timeline, and you can find also, if you are interested, on the website of IPCC. And then how the whole process starts with preparation phase. And then preparation phase starts with the scoping. In the scoping, the outline is drafted and developed by experts nominated by government and observer organization. And then this outline, the one I showed to you, is approved by the panel. And then if it's approved, the author that will be drafting will not change, cannot change the outline. And then after the approval, there will be a nomination of the authors, and then that has been proposed by the government, by outside organizations, and by also member of IPCC Bureau. And then the Bureau will select authors based on number of criteria for being a coordinating lead author, a lead author, a review editor. And then from that, the drafting will be started when the author are nominated. And then the author will produce a first order draft. And then this first order draft will be available for expert review. Anyone who has a PhD or do not have any university degree can go to IPCC website, register, he will receive report for comment. And he can provide any comment. The comment can be part of a section, it can be a chapter, it can be 2 chapters. And then it can be also looking at your concern, your perspective, or the literature you have produced have not been assessed. And then you provide that comment, it will be responded, and then it will be available on the website of IPCC. And then from those comments, the author will produce a second order draft. And then the first draft of the synthesis of the summary for the policymakers, and then the second order draft that will go to the government and experts. You can register also here. And then this one, from the first one will go only for the expert. This will be government and expert for review. And then they will review the second order draft, and then the author will get the comments, and then they will work on the comment, integrate, and they produce a final draft and a summary for policy makers. And then this summary for policy maker will go to the government for review before the meeting for the approval session. And then the approval session will concentrate on summary for the policy makers that will be approved line by line. And sometimes we can say 24 hours or 2 days you are sleeping because it's very tight. Is the author on one side and the government on one side, and then the Senate report should be aligned with the main report. And then the intervention of the government will be to have clarity on the language that will be used, and then to move a bit away of specialized language to have the common language that's understandable, but it's embedded in the in the underlying report. And then you can, getting involved in IPCC, you can become you can contribute to existing literature. You can write a paper in any language that could be assessed to fit the IPCC process. You can be an author or a review editor. That depends if you have been selected. If you are not selected, you can also be a contributing author, and that is when the author do not have an expertise in a specific area, you have that specific area, you can be co-opted to become a contributing author. And then you can be a reviewer. Anyone can do that. And then the young scientists also can apply to become a chapter scientist. And there are different ways to get involved in IPCC. Sometimes being an expert reviewer is much more important than an author. And then you can put you can put finger on aspect, on things that the author have not looked at. You can put fingers on some of the bias that can happen in the assessment. Sometimes this is very important, particularly if you are not coming from the mainstream scientific community. And how to contribute, and then we have the 3 levels, the 3 main report that started. And then with working group 1 contribution on physical science, working group 2 on impact, vulnerability and adaptation, working group 3 on the mitigation. You can find all those elements in the IPCC website. And then the experts have been already selected. You can become contributing author, or you can become reviewer. And those are very important. And you can also participate in IPCC outreach activities. And it's important also to have in mind that you can better contribute to the work of IPCC by being in frequent contact with IPCC focal point, or visit the website of IPCC, because all-time information are there. They're very transparent, they're very clear, they're accessible. And you can become also observer organization. Any university, any non-government organization, any institution, if it has some if they are observer organization to UNFCCC, or if they have some capacity, can become observer organization independent of the government. You don't need to go through the government to become an observer organization. Just write the IPCC secretariat and then to become observer organization, and then you participate in IPCC meeting, and then you can also nominate experts, and then you can get all kind of information that is needed, and then you can participate in the IPCC sessions, and then you can also organize or participate to IPCC event, and then all those information also are available in the IPCC website. And just to conclude, there is an outreach event on the IPCC activities and findings for Central Asia hosted by CAREC, and that will be 22nd and 23rd August in Almaty, maybe in Almaty. And then just have that in pencil in your agenda, and then spread information. Those will be interested to know better IPCC in order to be able to participate to IPCC activities. And those who are fun to social media. You have different ways of connecting to IPCC, of getting information in order to be able to spread out. And thank you for your attention.